ticket, not punch.
Hardy.
No, the ticket's not punch.
Fred.
You got a bunch of stuff wrong when you talk. So much for this country.
Dutcher and Hardy.
I guess this country's a bunch of buffoons that don't know the rules.
You idiot. The Sports Up.
11-6, Patriots are actually going to be in the postseason, another double-digit win season. Not only are they in the postseason, but they also have won the division because while we've been sitting here talking, I've also been doing the math on the Bills' schedule. Bills are going to be a wild card team this year. Patriots are your AFC East Division champs for the second year in a row. 11-6, on to the postseason.
We are Dutcher and Hardy. Bert Breer is with us. He's the senior NFL reporter and lead content strategist with the MMQB. You can watch us on YouTube. Subscribe to 98.5 The Sports Up on YouTube. The schedule is out. I'll go through it very quickly. They're at the Seahawks, the first game of the season for the NFL. Wednesday, September 9th at 8:20. Week 2, their home opener against the Steelers at 1 o'clock. Week 3, they're at the Jaguars at 1 o'clock. Then they are at the Bills at 1 o'clock. Raiders at home at 1 o'clock. Then at home against the Jets in a sterling Week 6 matchup at 1 o'clock. Then they go to Chicago on the 22nd of October at 8:15. They're at the Dolphins on November 1st. Then they play the Packers at home, to everyone's chagrin, at November 8th at 4:25. They're at the Lions, as we knew, in Week 10 in Munich, and that's at 9:30. Their bye is in Week 11. Week 12, they're at the Chargers. That's a primetime game. Week 13, home against the Bills. That's a 4:25 game. A lot of love to the Patriots, obviously, being in the Super Bowl last year. They're home against the Vikings December 10th. That's a primetime game on a Thursday. They are at Monday Night Football in Kansas City on the 21st at 8:15. Then they play the Jets at the Jets in Week 16 at 1 o'clock. Both Jet games at 1 o'clock. Hard to imagine why. And then an AFC title rematch, but this time at home against the Broncos the last week of the season. So a little tougher this year than last year. There's no real multi-game. Look, man, the NFL is parity. And so obviously anything can happen. Mm-hmm. But as if you look at the schedule right now, there's no great breaks. They don't have multiple game breaks where they play what are supposed to be bad teams.
Raiders and the Jets?
Yeah, well, that's 2. But there's not like a stretch like last year where they play 6 terrible teams in a row.
But I think that's sort of the way you want it, isn't it? Because like I think we knew on paper that this was going to be a difficult schedule. like you said, there's no like soft landing there, but there's also no stretch of like 4 or 5 games where it's like, oh man, they're going to have trouble winning any of these. You know?
But they play Packers, Lions, bye, Chargers, Bills. I mean, that's not great. The Vikings might be...
The Vikings could be really good.
Okay, so if you think the Vikings... Well, then they do. So it's Packers, Lions, bye, Chargers, Bills, Vikings, Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a
and that
bad stretch.
I mean, like the two road games that got me where it was like, all right, that's a tough draw, was having to play in Jacksonville in September, right? Because it's going to be a million degrees there.
And everyone says hot's harder to play than cold.
And I agree with that. And I think that it's... You know, they're going to be, obviously, if you're living there, practicing there, working there, you're going to be way more acclimated to it. So there's that piece of it. And then Arrowhead on Monday night is really, really, really difficult. Like that environment, primetime game.
Mahomes is back, too, because like if you had any chance of getting Mahomes before he came back, it would be obviously one of the first couple games of the season.
And it's not just that. It's also... how comfortable is he on the knee? Because a big piece of it for quarterbacks coming off of that injury is getting used to having people around you, bodies around you, having people around your feet. Like early on, like there's going to be a process for Mahomes, like there is for every quarterback, of getting reacclimated to that. You would think by the end of December he'll be there.
Right. So it's on paper a lot more difficult. So you think the Vikings are going to be good this year? That's interesting because a lot of people are saying it's funny. This, just from what I've heard from analysts talking about the NFC North, they've either said the Vikings are going to be the worst team or Chicago's not making the playoffs because their schedule is so difficult. And it's like a kind of like a Washington back to earth scenario for Chicago.
I think all 4 teams in the NFC North are good. Like I think the question is, And I think it's probably the division with the biggest variable, where I think almost, I mean, I don't know, is there a team that would surprise you if they won it?
No. Minnesota maybe.
Minnesota would surprise
because Kyler Murray or J.J. McCarthy haven't proven themselves.
But they've got a good roster around the quarterback.
Yes.
Right?
And a great coach.
They were just schizophrenic last year.
Mm-hmm. Is there a team
Hey. Offensive to me.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Cuckoo Bird.
Thank you. As long as you apologize.
Is there a team that would surprise you if they finished last in that division?
Can I just tell you? Yes, the Lions, because their schedule's really, 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 really easy.
Yeah.
So, yes.
I looked at the Lions yesterday, and I'm
Lions,
like, oh, my God, the Lions are going to win 13 games.
Yeah, the Lions. If the Lions do not win that, fine, maybe not. If they don't make the playoffs, something went terribly wrong.
Because the Lions' first 6 or 7 games, like, they should be 5-1, 6-1. And, like, if you look at the Lions' issue right now, it's new offensive coordinator and the pieces on the offensive line coming together. And so, like, of teams that would really benefit from, like, good teams, I'm talking, not like the Raiders or the Jets, like, of good teams that would benefit from having, like, an easier first half of the schedule, I think the Lions are near the top of the list because they are going to be working with a new offensive coordinator who's coming in from the outside, and they do have some moving pieces on the offensive line where Sewell's going from right to left. You're going to have a rookie at right tackle in Blake Miller, and you've got a new center in Cade Mays.
Nothing will surprise me about the Lions ever again in my life. So, no, I would not be most surprised. I'd be most surprised by the Bears, just because of what I saw out of Caleb Williams last year and his ability to do things and win games kind of single-handedly late if need be. I think he could do that. It would surprise me if the Bears finished last.
Yeah, the Bears, I think the Bears are sort of in the same category as the Patriots and the Jaguars, where they all three have young quarterbacks. Now, the Bears and Patriots quarterbacks are younger than the Jaguars quarterback. They all had first-year coaches last year, and they all kind of caught momentum and rode it. And, like, I think with all three teams, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. But history tells us that at least one of those teams is going to come crashing back to earth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and so which of those three, or maybe which two of those three, come crashing back to earth?
Not every good young quarterback ascends each year. There's there's almost a scheduled drop off that you have to put in there somewhere,
right,
or expect.
It's funny because, like, we have those discussions over, like, who we put on, like, the cover of the preview issue, right? And, like, I feel like the easy thing to do is always take the first or second, the guy coming off of his rookie year or his second year who just exploded, and put that guy in the cover because it's a sexy new name, and ride the wave with the guy. And, like, you sort of, I think everybody has the idea it's going to go like it went for Patrick Mahomes. And that's actually not as common as you think. You know, like, where a guy has a great rookie year or a great second year and then just builds on it, you know? Like, it's actually, like, more common that the guy levels off a little bit or crashes. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it happened with Jaden Daniels last year, right?
Yeah, and that's what people have been saying about, like, Chicago, is that,
right,
there's got a lot of the same kind of feeling as with a new coach, a hot quarterback, and everything. Could Chicago come back down to earth?
mean, people act like it's impossible with Drake May. It's possible. I mean, I don't think that anybody, like, and I love Drake as a player. I really like Caleb as a player too. But no one was sitting here at this point last year even making the argument that Caleb Williams or Drake May were as good as Jaden Daniels. You would have been laughed out of the room.
No, yeah,
right?
I agree with that, yeah.
And now, like, Jaden Daniels is the afterthought when we're talking about the three of them.
Well, I just invoked you the other day when talking about not Jaden Daniels, but talking about the Commanders, and it was we were crossing sports, as a matter of fact, but it was the issue of that team, that young team that got old very quickly.
Yep.
And it's it's a cautionary tale when you talk about trading. It was a Celtics conversation. It's like, oh, if you're talking about moving somebody for Giannis and it's going to include a young player and maybe a draft pick or two, it's like, hold on, you've got a young team right now. You could get old immediately, and that's what happened with the Commanders.
Right.
And I didn't follow them enough last year to know what Jaden Daniels' play was like, but I know that the team itself
got old.
Yeah, got old.
And it wasn't really Jaden Daniels' fault. He got hurt. Like, he got banged up, and they couldn't support him the same way they had the year before. The defense got old. You know, Terry McLaurin was nicked up. Like, they weren't as deep as like they sort of rode the same sort of wave the Patriots did in 25 and 24. They just came around to the playoffs short of where the Patriots got. But they did the same. I mean, like, we used the Commanders as the model last year for how the Patriots did it, right? Which is bringing all these free agents that your coaches have connections to, and you're bringing in known commodities and get yourself up to level ground at all of these different positions so you don't have holes everywhere. And I'm not going to – that's not a mirage because it happened. They won 12 games and got to the NFC title game, but it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, like, and I would say, and I think that the Commanders have a lot of good people running the show there, but I think they would tell you they got over their skis a little bit. So they go and trade for Deebo Samuel. They go and they trade for Marshawn Lattimore, and both of those guys are no longer on the team. They traded for Laramie Tunsil, who got a new contract, but they gave up a lot to get him. They went into the draft this year with 5 picks. 5 picks total. And now I think they wound up trading around and getting 6, but they didn't have a second-round pick. They didn't have a 4th-round pick. So they had 2 picks in the first 4 rounds. And how are you going to get younger if that's the case when you already were older to begin with?
Right. That was your issue going in.
Right. And, like, I think that's the thing, like, with, again, like, the sugar high of last year for people here, around here. It's like, oh, we'll trade everything to get this player or that player. You know, who cares about, like, first-round picks or second-round picks or – I mean, that's very easy to say from one of these seats. But then you wind up like the Commanders where your team's gotten old and you have no resources to take care of that with, you know? And we'll see what happens with the Commanders this year. But, you know, it was a sobering off season for them, you know? And the Patriots, like, are older than you think in some key spots. And how they take care of that, like, that's the one argument with the A.J. Brown trade. It's like, how long is that a solution for? And now are you setting up a scenario where you're going back into the first round in, like, 2028 to try to find a number 1 receiver?
Where do you think age is the biggest issue positionally for the Patriots right now?
Defensive line. You know, I'd say corner also. Like, you're good with Christian Gonzalez. Don't get me wrong. You know, I think Marcus Jones is a really good player. You had Carlton Davis there. You don't have a lot of young depth at corner. Your defensive line, you're relying on Milton Williams, who's a little older now. These guys are getting older. Mm-hmm. And so,
how old's Milton Williams?
Milton Williams is going into his 6th year now. So,
okay.
I mean, like, when you're talking about defensive linemen, it's like once you get to year 7, year 8, now you're talking about I mean, like, as you get closer to, and it's more on the edge where they have Draymond Jones and they have Harold Landry. And so they bring in Gabe Yakus. Is that going to be the answer? I just say, like, a lot of their depth in these places, in these areas, they don't have a lot of young depth where if one guy goes down, then what are they looking at? And, you know, when you've got a player who's got 6 years of mileage on him the way Milton Williams does, you know, or like Harold Landry goes down or Draymond Jones goes down, like, they're just some areas the team, linebacker's another one, you know, like who's your young player at linebacker if Robert Spillane goes down? And that's where the Commanders example comes in. The Commanders are relying on Bobby Wagner at linebacker. You know what I mean? I mean, all due respect, Bobby Wagner's an all-time great. He was in his 14th year last year.
Yeah.
I mean, like
he was
they had
35 years old.
Right. They had Dorrance Armstrong and Dante Fowler the year before at defensive end. And so it's like, if you can hold it together and everybody can stay healthy, awesome, which is what happened 2 years ago with them. But the depth got exposed because that injury luck swung around. And the older you get as a team, the more likely it is that you're going to wind up banged up. So that's why I think it's still, you know, critical. And these guys know this, and I think this is why the Patriots have been smart from the coaching staff to the front office to not sell the farm to go get X, Y, and Z. You know, I also think it's like why you have to, before you pull the trigger on the AJ Brown trade, you have to have like an honest discussion with your doctors about where he's at. You know, I mean, I just think it's
especially if you're giving up receivers in order to get it done. I mean, I understand that they don't have a number one right now, but is it better to have like a dedicated number one where you're not sure about his availability, or a bunch of 2s and 3s that at the very least they're going to be on the field?
Well, I also like listening to people here talk about him. I don't know how many people actually watched him play last year.
Right.
You know, like I don't know how many people actually saw what that looked like last year.
Yeah, he's not Jefferson.
He's not what he was. He's not what he was.
Yeah, he's not. You're not bringing in Justin Jefferson. You're not bringing in a guy that's going to single-handedly, take over a game.
Right. So if your expectation is that, you're barking up the wrong tree. And if you've watched a 3-minute highlight, that's not enough. There were points where he looked lumbering. Now, I think that the piece of this that's important to where you got to make the distinction, because I've talked to some teams that think he's starting to decline, right? I think the Patriots would tell you there has been some decline, right? The question is that him losing it, or was he so frustrated with the quarterback last year that there was some disinterest? And that's what you have to cut through. But I think that the medical piece of it's really important. Look, that issue that the Ravens had with Max Crosby's knee, I mean, I don't think A.J. Brown's knee is as bad, but it's the same category of thing, Like it's the same, like, degenerative pre-arthritic knee condition, I'm like, I just think that those things, you have to take those things seriously.
Can you imagine doing the deal, getting him in here, and then blowing it up?
I don't think it's going to happen. Well, because I don't know this, but I assume they've already looked at the scans. Now, when your doctors actually get their hands on him, that can be a different thing, But I'm assuming by now the Patriots doctors have already looked at all the scans and all of that.
All right.
All right. Bert Breer is here for the hour. There's plenty to talk about. The schedule was released yesterday. It's an interesting schedule. We're just going to go game by game every day. Every day we'll focus on a new game, and we'll give a prediction.
And then when you go through all 17, start again, all the way until you get to the season.
Yeah, we'll just or we'll move on to other teams. We'll just have a little fun. All right, we'll be back in just a moment.
My buddy and me. With friends like these,
to climb up a tree. We're the best friends you can be, my buddy and me.
Now, more of your best morning buddies, Toucher and Hardy on the Sports Hub.
We are Toucher and Hardy. Bert Breer is in studio. Okay, so we know now the Patriots' schedule. We know that they open at the Seahawks Wednesday, September 9th at 8:20. They are the first game of the season. If you're the Patriots with the Vrabel situation, does this affect you either way?
I mean, I think it's really boils down to how you play, And in that way, I mean, the first 5, 6, 7 games of the year, I think, are going to be important, because if you get off to a 3-1 start, even if things level off from there, it's hard for people to point back and say, well, what happened in April and May and June affected you. But if you're 2-4 or you're 1-6, then like the first thing everyone's going to do is like say, does this team have its crap together? Did what happened in April and May affect their preparation for the season? Is this what it was a year ago? Has Vrabel lost the sort of swagger and unifying presence that he had in 2025? So I don't know if it's going to affect them internally much early in the season, but it'll certainly affect the narratives around them. And when things aren't going well, those things can seep into a team.
Yeah. But do you think it would have been lost, though, if it wouldn't have been as bad if they played like that Sunday? That they could have, that it's the only story going into that game.
Yeah, and I wonder about this. So I talked to one of the guys who's in charge of broadcasting there yesterday. Hans Schroeder's his name, for a story I did. And I asked him flat out. I said, was the Mike Vrabel situation a factor in you guys putting the Patriots in the opener? And he said no.
9.
But if I want to be a cynic about this, right?
He said, I will be asking the questions here.
If I wanted to be
Is it safe?
It does have that sort of feel attached to the name.
Is it safe?
Is it safe?
I would say if you wanted to be a cynic, all right, and you look at the way they promote the Super Bowl, and everyone bitches every fall about the halftime show, right? And you guys know who I'm talking about that bitches about it. Like, it's some pop star, and, Joe Blow from Topeka is like, well, that's not what I want. That's not American. That's not this. That's not that. And what I always remind people of, like big football fans of, when it comes to that sort of stuff, is that's not for you. They have you. You can say you're not watching the game because of that. You're watching the game.
Yeah.
Like what they're trying to get with the halftime show, with all the ancillary stuff around the Super Bowl, they're trying to get the fan that could take it or leave it on that Sunday, right? So that fan might go skiing on Super Bowl Sunday. But maybe if you have an appealing matchup, they'll stay in, right? That's the fan they're trying to get. And if I want to be a cynic about this, what's going to get that fan to tune in on
the biggest story of the offseason?
Yeah. Right. Well, like that fan, there might be just a morbid curiosity. Hey, I wonder what happened to that guy who was caught with that girl. Like, maybe I'll turn this on tonight. And so, like, to me, like, that would be the logic in putting them there. Is you're trying to pull in the drive-by viewer, so you boost the number. And I think the other thing is it's part of the conversation now leading up to the game.
Well, that's
because a lot of people are going to forget about this. I think once we get to June and July, people, like, eventually this will peter out. And I think the one effect that this probably has is it's going to give it new life.
Mark Daniels made a similar point
back.
Yesterday. We had him on, and he was talking about how, this of course, it hadn't been announced yet, but we were assuming that would be the case. The season opener, the way it'll be covered here in New England, it'll be like, Super Bowl rematch and all of that, the X's and O's of the game, whereas now it becomes a national story. So nationally, it'll be circling back to the Vrabel-Racine story. That's how they'll be talking about the season opener.
Let's say by then, Adam, no one's gotten Diana yet. It might, like, renew the feeding frenzy to try to get her on the record, right? Like, so then, the NFL is opening and the Patriots are in the game. Does it create, like, a little bit of a second feeding frenzy to try for somebody to try to get to her, And then if she talks, I mean, God help us all. Now, like, this whole thing has ramped up again.
Do you have any inclination if she's planning to talk or not?
I don't know. Yeah. I just don't. Like, I think, would you if you were her?
Yeah.
You would?
Yes. Maybe not now, but I would.
But soon.
Relatively soon.
Yeah.
I mean, before the end of before the football season, I'd come out and
why
tell because I can. It's because we've discussed this. If she goes and does a long form interview somewhere and is just honest about what went on and just says, look, no matter what she says, if she's honest and she's like, look, I met this guy. He's very charismatic. I found him very attractive. We had a legitimate working relationship and things just as they do. There was an attraction and I knew it was wrong, but I would see him periodically and it would renew itself. Yeah. Like anything that you say, look, she didn't kill anybody. Yep. She didn't take advantage of a kid. She didn't hurt anyone.
It's sort of scenario that's actually relatively common.
Right. So if the big problem with it that gave it legs was denying it so they were incredulous that it would even be
and
suggested.
Calling the reporter out.
Right. Yeah. So we've talked about all these things, but if I'll give you my opinion. If I heard Diana Rossini and she was just talking like a normal person and was like, look, I knew all along. She doesn't even have to say it was bad. She just has to say, this is what happened. And when you hear it out of someone's mouth and they're not being defensive or on guard and they just go, here's what happened. When you hear it, you'd have to be a psycho to go like, wow, I'm gonna like this woman should never work again, and like she doesn't deserve to live, and like
that's what ends it.
That's what ends it. But it's also she's never been this famous, so she can turn around and be like parlay that into she's a charismatic woman. She's good on the microphone. There's a million jobs that she could have.
If you were the Crafts, would you pay her not to talk?
If I was her, I don't know if I'd take the money not to talk.
But if you were the Crafts, would you pay her not to talk?
Maybe not. Maybe if I was Vrabel, I'd pay her not to talk. But I don't know if it means that much to the Crafts. The Crafts have survived way worse.
I think the problem is like
way worse.
I think for her in a vacuum, it would make sense to talk. There are other people involved here, and I do think that like, how does that involve your husband? How does that involve your children? How does that involve your children 5 years from now? 10 years from now?
It's a thing that you'd be telling your children anyway. Her children are going to ask her.
Hey, I was accountable for what I did. Is what you're
right.
saying,
And then it's not like when her children get older, they're not going to go, hey, Mom, I Googled you and it came up that you had this affair for 6 years with a guy. I mean, it's something that's going to have to be addressed to the kids.
Right.
And it's something that I'm sure the kids will forgive. They love their mother.
Yeah.
I mean, look, very few things are unforgivable. Okay? Like maybe things are impossible to reconcile a marriage over, but nothing is unforgivable. Like you don't have to, like, even if say the guy who got hurt the most in this, her husband, like there's an opportunity if she talks to him and says this is what happened, that sure he's bitter at her for a few years. I know women that have cheated on their husbands and their husbands flipped out and they got divorced and now have co-parenting normal relationships,
right?
Civil relationships, which is all you're asking for. Like you don't hold on to stuff that forever if you want to. It doesn't do you any good to hold on to that stuff forever. So I don't know, and it's certainly she's not going to come out swinging at Vrabel's wife and stuff,
right?
It's not going to. It doesn't have to be salacious. It just has to be honest.
It has to be human.
Yeah, and she doesn't have to go through every single time she saw him. No one. I'm just saying, people have affairs. A lot of guys get patted on the back for being tomcats and things. I mean, every rock biography I read, the guys, they just gloss over the fact that they were married. You forget they were even married, and they're bragging about getting laid a lot.
Well, it's sort of interesting because, like, when Vrabel went through that airport and, like, that, the Joey Greco-style reporter was following him. And I did mean to mention, Fred, that I appreciate your appreciation of that show Cheaters from 20 years ago. I did see like the look of satisfaction on your face when I brought it up last week or 2 weeks ago. I think it's sort of like that's where it flipped a little bit for Vrabel, where that actually I think helped Vrabel because it was like, all right, enough. When that video came out of him getting chased through the airport, it was like no one was sitting there saying, oh, yeah, get him. Everybody was like, God, that sucks.
Yeah.
That's really ugly. Why would somebody do that? And that's not doing anybody any good for him to be chased around like that. No one should subject people to that sort of thing. And when people took pictures of Jen in the airport in Salt Lake City, same thing, like, this is getting kind of skeezy. It actually, like, I think in a certain way, like, humanized them.
Yeah.
And, I think that that's really what this look, like I've said this before, I'll say it again. I've known both people in this, for a long time. I think they're both like deep down good people. It obviously looks like they made a pretty big mistake. And
yeah, but they probably fell in love with each other. Right. What are you going to do? I mean, look, it's very human. Let me take these calls very quickly. Sean, go ahead.
Hey, guys. Morning.
Good morning.
I have a quick question for you guys. Do you think you'd still be talking about this if this happened mid-season?
No.
But because of where it happened in this calendar, I mean, this is such a non-issue now. I mean, how is this?
Real quick. Well, no, you do. But you have to understand that this, in terms of tabloid stories, was the biggest tabloid story in the United States. Which is saying something because there's 100 tabloid stories a day, and it has legs.
True.
So Right. You don't look. Ultimately, do I care that they had an affair? Not at all. The only thing is, Rossini sent us those weird baked goods for no reason, which I didn't like. But look, I don't give a rat's ass that the two of them had an affair. Who cares?
I don't think I've ever seen that.
But I do think that, and I do think, Sean, you're right. When the season starts, this is all going to die down. This isn't going to follow him around forever. They didn't do anything. They just had an affair, but they lied, and that gave it legs, and it's going to die.
Thanks for taking my call, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I'm sorry, Sean. I went on too long for your
I got to let you go.
John, go ahead. I'm sorry I was so boring. John, go ahead.
Yeah, hey, guys. Two things. One is it's already faded down unless something else new pops up, like some kind of paternity test or something wild like that to reignite it. It's already faded down. That's number one. From a football standpoint, if they land A.J. Brown on June 1st, you're not going to hear a thing about this story until maybe training camp. And the other thing, Bert, is, seriously, the other thing, Bert, is regarding your comment about starting out slow. They got a tough schedule, and if realistically, they could start the season 1-3, and those 3 losses could be decent losses away at playoff teams from last year. I don't think that's any kind of insight or any kind of into dysfunction in the locker room because of this. I don't know if that's accurate.
I agree with you. Like, it could have nothing to do with that, but that's not going to stop people from discussing it like it is.
And that's the problem with something like this is I don't think it would affect the locker room in the least. I don't think it affects the players one bit. I don't think it means anything to them. I think them being asked about it is probably enjoyable in a way, that it's funny to be asked about their coach having an affair. It certainly wouldn't bother me. And but that will not stop the narrative of if they start off 1-3 or 1-2, that people are going to be like, I wonder if they're 1-2 because of the thing with Vrabel. That's all. And it's not fair, but there's a million people talking 24 hours a day about sports.
It's how the losses look. If they're like disjointed and the plays aren't getting in, and it's like a team issue as opposed to just a talent disparity. Then it's going to become part of the conversation again.
I think you're giving people too much credit. I think if they lose a game, it's going to become a story. It's not going to be real, but it will be something people are talking about. All right, we'll be back to finish up things with Bert.
Hey, listen, if you've got to go, we understand, but make sure you bring the Sports Hub app with you so you can hear more of Toucher and Hardy.
That's what I want on my tombstone.
On the Sports Hub.
Toucher and Hardy, Bert Breer's here. I heard Felger and Maz, they had an interesting thing that every year, for whatever amount of years, 4 teams that made the playoffs in the NFL the year before don't make the playoffs. That means 4 teams that had not made the playoffs before made the playoffs. I don't mean to put you on the spot. I probably should have said something about this beforehand, but just do you have can you just venture a guess off the top of your head of a few teams that could miss the playoffs that made it last year?
Steelers in the AFC. I'm looking at the list now. Steelers in the AFC. I'd say either the Patriots or the Jaguars.
I was going to say Jacksonville.
Based on that premise, I think Houston's going to be really good again. The Chargers should be good. The Chargers should be legitimately better than they were last year because they were without both their tackles for basically the entire year. Had injuries all over the place and still won 11 games. In the NFC, the easy one's Carolina to knock out. Mm-hmm. And then maybe the Bears.
It's interesting.
Or Packers.
Yeah.
I just think the NFC North, again, that dynamic is so volatile. What happens with those teams? I don't know. Maybe the NFC West doesn't get 3 in again, but those teams are all really good. The Seahawks, the Niners, and the Rams.
Yeah, the Lions schedule is super easy. And if you wanted to go 4 teams that didn't make the playoffs, that's really easy. But go ahead. 4 teams that didn't make the playoffs that would make it, because there's some big names.
Yeah. Kansas City's the easy one, right?
Well, Baltimore, too.
Baltimore's got a new coach, though, so there's a little bit of a variable there.
Yeah, but I'm not in love with that division.
I think Cincinnati's got a chance to get in.
People are big on Cincinnati.
Every year.
If it's health, if it's health is sort of the wild card with them, it seems like always. And then in the NFC, Detroit, because of the schedule, like you said, The Giants, I think, have a chance with Harbaugh. Like I think that's a good roster. If Jackson Dart plays well, I don't think that. I don't know if Philly's going to be great this year. I think they'll still be good, but maybe not great the way that they've been great over the last 4 years. I mean, Tampa, I think, is a good team, too, and Tampa could go back and win that division again.
Well, it's funny because the NFC South is just someone's got to win it.
It's like the inverse of the NFC North.
Right. In New Orleans, it looks like they have a young quarterback. Who knows? Atlanta, maybe a new coach turns things. I mean, how many games do you have to win the North? I mean, you only had to win 8 games last year, or the South, rather. The South, I mean, you only had to win 8 games last year. So it's like
the Saints are a little bit like
the
Saints are a little bit like the Jets on offense, where they've got all these like highly drafted pieces. Like the Saints have 2 first-round tackles in Fuaga and Banks. They have 2 first-round receivers in Olave and Tyson. They drafted a tight end in the 2nd round in Delp. And then they have Kamara and Etienne at running back. They bring Etienne over from Jacksonville. So you look at them and it's like, well, if the quarterback plays well, same with the Jets. The Jets actually have a lot of offensive pieces now.
Oh,
it's just the question is the quarterback.
Well, John and I got into a big discussion. If the Jets can win 6 games, that would be, I think, what keeps Aaron Glenn's job.
You know what, though, dude? Like, I think that looks like it's going to be set up really nicely for a young quarterback in 27.
Yes. Well, it's a lot of things have looked very nice for them for a long time.
Yeah.
And they've been a quarterback away for 15 years. So,
but if you follow me here, we can do the same exercise. 2 first-round tackles with Fashanu and Membu.
Right.
2 first-round receivers with Wilson and Cooper.
Mm-hmm.
A first-round tight end.
A second-round tight end.
A second-round tight end.
A second-round running back.
Second-round running. I mean, it's just – and they're all young. And so now they've got a year to work together, and you plug a young quarterback in there in 27, and like it's an experienced offensive coordinator in Frank Reich. Like, it's pretty easy to look at that and say that could be a nice situation for a young quarterback to step into.
I've heard this just so many times.
I know.
It's just
Bert Blast.
I appreciate
the
you.
Jets might be good in 2 years.
Look, I'm the same person who sat here like 2 or 3 years ago, whatever it was, before Saleh got fired, and when Aaron Rodgers came in there, and like they've got a lot of pieces, and now a lot of those guys are gone.
Right.
So.
Well, yeah, they hit on 3 picks in a draft recently, and one of them's gone, one of them's good, and one of them's okay.
Wilson, Sauce, and Jermaine Johnson, right?
Yeah.
No, 2 of them are gone.
Oh, Jermaine Johnson's gone. That's right. They kept Will McDonald. My bad. He was another first-round pick that they shouldn't have taken.
Traded to Tennessee for a guy who...
They love that guy in New York. We're getting too in the
Sweat?
weeds. Yeah, we're getting too in the weeds.
Devondre Sweat is has some issues.
Yes, but he's
very
a physical freak.
Very talented, yeah.
Yeah, but that's the situation going on.
Off the air, I got to tell you guys about the best draft red flag I heard, which maybe we can bring on the air next week. We'll vet it with you off the air, and then maybe we can tease that for next week.
All right, very good.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Bert Breer, thank you. Read him in the MMQB. Thank you. We will have you in next Friday when we come back. In honor of Dundero, who apparently made a song that's not so great. We will not play that, but we will play other bad songs.
Too easy.
Yeah. Too easy.
Low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, so we will be back in just a moment.